Scrapheap Challenge Ford Overhead Cam Pinto engine budget build, as if that's not a mouthful, and this is episode 8. So last time we was having a look at the pistons, weighed some rods, and during this week it's all gone to, well, let's go take a look. So all these chaps have suffered detonation, which means really I should definitely check the ovality of the connecting rod big ends. These are the early rods which people seem to hate, and we've got this little thing for measuring. So if we go in that way, it is a snug fit, as is that one, as is that one, as is that one. That's on the up and down, but what about that way? So let's need to focus. Doesn't drop in. Doesn't drop in. Nope. So basically those 4 rods that I was intending to use are quite, how should I say, oval, egg-shaped, where the big end bearing shell sits. Not good. This is another rod that I had, so I just thought I'd quickly doesn't fit. Slack. Oh dear, that means probably all the rods that have suffered in an engine with detonation are scrap, or at least need recircling. However, tucked away, well, there's 3 rods out of a 205 block, and if we put that in there, that's quite a snug fit. And if we go across there, that's quite a snug fit. Now, I do know that engine suffered detonation. It was a very badly freshened up engine that had been running very bad. But it hasn't suffered like these early rods. So I'm hoping I can find rod number 4 to go with those. And we shall be upgrading to 205 rods, which have to magically hold the piston rings and compression because we are lacking pistons. Poor guys. And we've established the rods are no happier, these early type 2-litre rods. So we move on to the 205 type rod, which does actually, they all seem quite good. So, problem, I've only got 3. This one, despite being of the same style, not like the original, that's a 1600 early style rod, that's another short stroke rod. And I've either forgotten, not realised, but I didn't know they used it in the short stroke. So there's a little rod upgrade for the early short stroke 1600 Pinto. That's quite handy to know. What's more weird, I'm quite sure it might have come out of my first Capri when I removed its first engine. It was a 1981 Capri. That's the piston I removed. And it's on its own. There isn't another 3 to go with it. So did they upgrade the rods on the 1600? Not sure on that one. If you know, please let me know in the comments, but if you're also running an early 1600 and you've got the early type rods, it might be worth trying to find a set of these. You know if it's a 1600 because you've got a double A on there. Same as on the old style rod, it's also double A. And the 2 litre rods, as you can see, BA. Same with the older rods, they're also BA on the numbers. So, I think this engine build may have come to a bit of a stall at the moment. We're lacking pistons. I do have some more 205 style rods, and hopefully find out in a few days time whether we might have a few, how should we say, more pistons to choose from. I'll have to let you know on that one, folks. So, things seem to have come to a stop. Well, it's now middle of the week. Hoping to find out about some more spare parts, but as yet not heard a thing. Surprise, surprise. Connecting rods, we've been breeding them, as you can see. In fact, we've got 14 pistons there. Same amount as a Bristol Hercules. Anyway, the battle for the connecting rods. The early type rods, most of which have been with pistons that have been in engines with detonation, are all pretty much oval on this big end. So we move to the 205 type rods. Even though this type rod here, a 205 rod, was actually in an old style block from 1985. Funnily enough, that rod does measure up the best. It's got 2 mates there, which I'm going to get them all removed from the pistons, and if all 3 of those are good, I can then match the best of these 205 rods to the 3 there. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. And we've also learned that there was basically a 205 rod for the 1600, shall we say, but the early short stroke 1600, once we got to the 165 Emax, they were using a smaller bore piston and using the 2 litre connecting rods. So yeah, and I suspect that piston went with that one. That could have been from a 1981 engine. The plot thickens. So I've just removed the 3 pistons from those rods, picked one from the other 205 type rods, and I think we've written off these old style rods. For example, this one, if you measure that way, but if you go that way, it doesn't go in. So that one's very oval indeed. So these rods measure okay that way, and okay that way. So they're not perfect, but let's be fair, this build is kind of making the best out of a bad situation. So what have we learned from this? It's become quite clear these early type rods, they've all got an oval shaped big end, and I'm suspecting that is down from the use of unleaded petrol, which seems to be the cause of most of the issues with this build. It all seems to be from using unleaded petrol. However, we have a set of rods. These are the later 205 rods, which, as you can see there, they are a little bit more beefy. These came out around 1985, or at least for the 2 litre. Because I did come across this connecting rod, which went alongside the 205 rod. You can see it's of the same design, the same style, just not quite as tall. And that came off this piston, the happy little chap. And that was fitted to a 1981 Ford Capri, which belonged to me. I know the history of the engine, it was original. So how come the 1600 got the better connecting rod before the 1600? Before the 2 litre, should I say? That does make a good upgrade for any of the early type 1600 rods. These are the short stroke rod, not the later 165 Emax. So the good news is we have a set of connecting rods that match, that measure up, so we can make use of those. As a bonus, they are 205 rods, so an upgrade. We have a lot of scrap rods there that really need resizing. And one issue I've noticed is how much thread has come through on these bolts, because some of them have come through a little bit more than others. More so, that one being a good example. So it looks like the next thing to do will be measuring rod bolts and picking the best set out of the many that we have. So I'm afraid this build may have come to a bit of a temporary pause till we find some reasonably priced or free donated whatever pistons, but we'll finish on a little story, and it's to do with engines that have been laid up and have seized. So here we have a piston from a Ford Transit variant of the Pinto engine. It was cast in 1985, but it wasn't a 205 block. It was the old style block, but fitted with 205 rods. And when I stripped this engine, I was quite surprised how much cylinder damage there was. There was a lot of scoring, and some of these actually went above where the piston rings stop. Not a good sign. So what had happened? As you can see, the piston crown isn't particularly that bad. I've given it a clean off, a few little marks, but it suffered in other ways. You can see here around the top there's a lot of carnage, and I'm guessing this engine was laid up for some time, and in that time this cylinder got rust in it and the rings stuck to the cylinder bore. And if you look at the top piston ring there, you can actually see evidence of corrosion. So I'm guessing somebody put some oil down the plug holes to free the cylinders off, and then started it up. But then actually gave it a coat of red paint and sold it on. Now the engine showed no significant cylinder wear, it was just scored to buggery, as you can tell by this piston. And basically it finished that engine off without some serious money spending on it, with reboard cylinders, etc. And all because somebody just started it up. If they hadn't have done that, we'd have had 4 usable pistons for this build, but as it turns out we don't. So folks, little tip: if you're going to unseize an engine with the fluid down the plug holes to free it off, please don't start it up, because all you're going to do is kill it. So what was once a pretty indestructible engine has definitely suffered through the use of unleaded petrol and also people's stupidity when trying to start up engines that have been stood a long time. This has definitely put a bit of a halt to the build for now until we can acquire some pistons at a, how should we say, budget price, because that's what this build was all about, is to try and build up a running engine for as little money as possible. Unfortunately, through basically what looks to be a lot of detonation issues, all my pistons are basically scrap. So, do you have a usable set that you'd be willing to part with? Maybe you're a supplier and you just have some kicking about, I don't know, that need to be standard size. Nothing special, as long as they all are all the same. So on that bombshell, I think that's about it for this episode. Not sure when the next one will be up. That kind of depends on you guys really. So, catch you on the next one.